We did, I remember that. Take it off the driver and out the front driver of the vehicle.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Was it one of those?
So that's
Oh, number 9, yeah, 100%, yeah. There was just a flat one going on. Why is it?
What section are good? What section?
From 2 to
All right.
Gulf County line.
We are live.
It is September 28th, 6 PM. We're gonna open the EDA meeting. I get a motion to approve the minutes of September 14th meeting.
Second.
Motion made and second, approve the minutes of September 14th meeting. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. We got 2 fast aid projects. One is for Jeremy Tooman.
So is that a business, Jason?
What's that?
Do you have a business there?
No, it's just a
or
commercial building in town.
commercial building?
Yeah.
And you
Well,
can
it's kind of a
hide
business.
stuff in there?
No, it's a storage facility. It's kind of a business. Sure feels like it.
Oh, you're in the business district.
Right, business district, right.
Just a question, I don't know. Jason being involved in this one, does he need to recluse himself from the vote or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But I have no problem with it, I'd like to see it go ahead.
Go ahead, second.
I guess
Go ahead.
I had a question on it. So I didn't have time to dive deep into this, but I thought the facade program was set up for businesses.
Well, it's a commercial business, a building in a business
Right.
district, so, yeah.
It's a commercial building.
We pay commercial taxes, I know that.
It's not a business, but it's a commercial building. That's just like some of these other ones too. I mean, a lot of them are businesses, but at one time that Larry Larson building, that wasn't a business at the time either. We did it.
Okay.
I mean, it's for commercial.
Okay.
It's to get the commercial district looking good, is what it is. But it's up to you people.
And that's kind of what I was thinking, it improved downtown, it's improved our city's, appearance, to me, and it sounds like it will.
Well, yeah, Ag Partners improved their building 100% alongside it.
And besides that, it used to be the city hall, so.
Right, yeah.
So that's what I was thinking, if it improves how everything looks and appears down there, it's a good thing.
Any other questions on it?
Made a motion, I guess.
Yeah, the motion's been made. I haven't had a second yet.
I'll second.
Motion made and second to approve the first fast aid grant for Jeremy Tooman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Motion's carried 2-1. Next one is Jeff and Carolyn Ryan.
Did the city put a roof on that? Not that one, but that roof looks a little rough.
It's been a long time. We were thinking about it, but then it wasn't leaking or anything.
Yeah, because it needs a
So they
roof.
put them lights on it that's whole lights.
I know I talked to them. I ran into her doing something, and I thought that they pulled off the tin that was when Lodemeier's put it on, but I could be wrong.
Well, Lodemeier's put the tin on it. Long time ago.
Yeah,
They pulled
and
it
that
off.
was, that's
Off
what
the roof.
that's what the Ryans pulled off, she said, I thought.
Mhm.
They took off the sides.
Well, the sides, there wasn't a
Yeah.
tin on the top,
Right,
that was
yeah,
all
it's all
shingle.
shingled, yeah, and that's what they're gonna replace now, the roof.
Yep.
Do you know what material they're using? Patrice brought up a good idea here. Do we need to know?
Oh,
I mean, I guess we do have a city ordinance about roofing, and if they use tin, it's supposed to be hidden fasteners,
Yeah,
so.
But they gotta, this is for the grant, they gotta come in for a building permit yet. And then we
Very
can,
true,
yeah, then we can approve that, so.
very true.
so this is just for, alright, so we'll have to approve the building permit.
I move that we accept this for thing at $2,500 for the Ryans.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made second, approve the Class 8 improvement for Jeff and Carol and Ryan, all in favor, say aye.
Alright,
Opposed? Motion's carried.
So we should get up here.
No, yeah, I got something on that too. We're looking at our budget and that, and I signed a purchase agreement for 2 more lots up there this last week, so
alright.
that'll help out for, towards that budget next year. I just wanted to share that with you. Anything else for the EDA?
Could I'm just wondering if we should put a hold on these now until the end of the year, until we can get their finances, or what do you think? I'm just bringing it up.
Hold our lots?
On the, no, on the $2,500.
On the
Oh,
facade.
that way.
Facade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
facade, yeah.
So after this one, no more, I could see
For the
it.
rest of the year,
I could see it.
I could too.
Let's see, that's October. I would think that'd be fine.
And then reassess it, after the first of the year.
It's not a bad
Yeah.
idea.
Fair amount of money, don't know.
Yeah, I had noticed that through the state, the EDA fund here too, that there's a good deficit there. And so I was even wondering if, and maybe this is something we decide sooner, but, or later, I should say, is there some way that we could look at it and say, we only do 20 a year, 10 a year, and put a limit to it, just because it's growing, and
Well,
we're
yeah, I
giving
know.
out more and more money every year, and at some point, we have to look at it and say, how much money can we actually be giving out? I mean, it's great to help these businesses downtown, but at the same time, we have to look at our own checkbook. We can't just keep
No,
donating.
that's a good point.
How long has the
A lot
program been?
of them have been done, but some are starting to come back again.
Is it a 3-year program or a 5-year? How long has this program been going on?
Which,
Oh, it's just a couple.
3 or 4 years. I bet it's been over 4.
Yeah, because basically the whole main street has been done.
Royals has been done, the hardware store's been done,
Benda's and.
then there's the
Apartments,
bar,
insurance, yeah.
both bars, the
Grocery store being done.
That's right.
grocery store, that,
And Larson's was done.
yeah, and then 24/7 workout center and all. So there isn't much that hasn't been
Right.
affected with that.
Mhm.
But it'd be, I mean, I could see holding it off now and reassessing it later.
I agree with that. I mean, we gotta stop a leak where we can.
Do you wanna make a motion of that?
Do you want to suggest a time frame that we could maybe revisit it, just so that we keep this on the docket and not bring it up every month? But, like, you want to say spring?
Revisit it in March, I would think.
I think that sounds good. Get some time here. March. Sounds good.
What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay, I thought you were still kind of thinking. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
So you wanna make that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we put the facade project on, or not project, the facade grant availability on hold until March of 2023.
So do I have a second? Either one.
Yeah.
Motion made second to put the grant applications on hold till March. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All, opposed? Motion's carried. Anything else to be brought forward on the EDA meeting? We have a motion to adjourn.
Almost.
Second.
Motion made second to adjourn the EDA. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. We'll now go into the city council meeting. Stand for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize, council. I'm going to get here on time one of these days.
Which is different from seeing you on TV.
That's right, yeah.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with one amendment? We have this is supposed to have been for a patio, and they want to make it a porch now? Not you.
So he's gonna go to the one that got just thrown in there, that's gonna be, sorry, you're amending it, yes. Yeah, so that's Mike Lodemeyer's, so we're just gonna amend it, cause I didn't have it on the original agenda.
That's gonna go under 8 also then,
Yes, please,
8C.
correct.
He's what, he's changing a deck?
Well, they were gonna go with the deck, and now you're gonna put a porch on instead. My understanding, right, Joe?
I would approve the agenda with the amendment for the Lodemeyer building permit added.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Approve the minutes of the September 14th meeting.
So moved, I read through them.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the minutes of the September 14th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Old business. I don't know, anything we should know?
No, I don't think there's
Okay, we'll go into new business, Northland Security.
anything. Can you hear us, George?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Good, thank you. Thank you for accommodating the ability to do this virtually, so that's very helpful. I've got 2 items for you this evening. One is the bonds for your 2022 street and utility project, and then the second is an item which the bond attorney recommended that the city put on your agenda, which is a approval of a policy for post-issuance bond compliance. Mayor, do you have a preference for which one is first?
no, I don't.
Okay,
I was thinking about the resolution for awarding the bond should be first, though.
all right, let's do that. Now, in your packet, there is a resolution. That's the only action item relating to approving the bond sale. But I'll hit the highlights here, council, and certainly address any questions you may have. So of course, at previous city council meetings, we had talked about this bond sale, and what we did is worked with your local bank, First Farmers and Merchants Bank, on to secure the financing for this bond issue. The bond size is relatively the same. It's netting the city $802,751 for project construction and engineering contingency type costs. And then adding cost of issuance, you have a total bond issuance of $817,000. And so this was at the previous city council meeting, we looked at two different financing terms, one with a 15-year term and the second with a shorter term, which works out at 11 years. The city council's preference was to look to the shorter term. So that's what you've got with this bond resolution. So the bank gave the city an interest rate of 5.25%. Couple of features that are associated with that is, one is the bonds are callable on any date, which is a very good feature because, like I heard the mayor say earlier in the meeting, that, for example, on, I believe it might be the Twin Homes project or Swanson Heights, one of the two, that you sold a couple lots or you got commitments for a couple additional lots. I know this is not associated with a real estate development like that, but it's nice to have the bonds callable at any date, in the event you have the ability to pay down on principal. So that's a nice feature. The closing date is October 27th, so you'd be considering the approval tonight on September 28th. The proceeds will be in your account on October 27th. As we previously talked about as well, this bond is partially paid for by special assessments. So approximately 22% of the bonds will be paid by assessments against benefiting property owners. As well, what we talked about in a previous meeting is that the assessments won't be certified until the project's done in 2023. So your first revenues or receipt of special assessment payments won't begin until 2024. The other revenue source is a property tax levy spread citywide. So Mayor and Council, that's the highlights, if you will, of this financing. Again, working with the local bank, getting you that financing for this project. Any questions I can address for you?
I got one for you, George. You wanna explain to them, if we would go bonding someplace else, that we'd have to be called, we have to go out so many years before we can redo everything or even pay it off? Like we did before. We had a couple bonds that way, we had to wait out 7 years.
Oh, yes, thank you for the question, Mayor. So for this one, it's callable any date, so that there is no wait until a future date, say 6 or 7 years from now, before you could prepay on the bonds. You can do that at any date with this bond.
I would have a question too. Did this interest rate seem kind of high? Do you still think that, or what's your thinking on those lines?
Well, I will, I'm not standing in front of you, but if I were, I would say that the interest rate is a little bit higher than I'd like to see. We are in, as you know, a interest rate environment where it's changing every day, and it's not changing to lower interest rates. It seems each day interest rates are climbing, and then with the Fed recent action to raise short-term interest rates by 0.75%. So that was even since the last time I was with you. We originally started talking about this bond, and we were probably thinking about 4.25% to 4.5% for an interest rate. Rates have just been moving, unfortunately, in the wrong direction here. So, that's one of the features certainly that's nice about the bonds being callable on any date, is the interest rate is a little bit higher. than I would have. I'm not trying to call out the bank certainly here, but, I think that, you know, they worked with us on this and they've done a lot of good work for the city in the past. One of the nice things about the bonds being callable on interest is that, you know, if we do see a reversal in interest rates, maybe it's not next year, maybe it's 3 years from now. We can certainly look at maybe refinancing this at a lower interest rate.
Okay, thank you.
If they would decide another street project, they could, and let's say 3 years, and the interest rate goes down, they can incorporate them both, couldn't they?
That's exactly right, Mayor. In fact, I talked about that with the banker about, you know, the ability of the city, if you had, and I know you don't have one, you know, for 2023 or something at this time, but if you do have one in the coming years, and it doesn't even have to be a street project, it could be anything that can be financed as a general obligation bond, which is most projects that a city has. This could be refinanced and rolled in with that financing as well.
Anybody else got any questions? So I'll ask for a motion to approve the bond. From the Goody Bank, or First Farmers. Yeah.
I'll second.
Motion made and second to go ahead and approve the bonds from First Farmers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, now your second shot, bud.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the questions on that previous, you know, resolution and the bonds itself. So certainly I'll work with Jill, and I'm not talking about the previous bond issue, but I'll certainly work with Jill. She'll incorporate the levy necessary for that bond into when you get that levy finalized. So that'll become part of your budget. The second item, like I say, is it's actually a requirement of the IRS. The IRS recommends that you have a policy in place because you have the ability to issue tax exempt bonds. That is something that you know, certainly the IRS is not getting taxable interest from the city, so you need to have a policy in place for maintaining the tax exempt status of not only this bond, but this policy would carry forward for any future debt that you have. So it's good to have a policy in place. There's several actions recommended in the policy. I'll just kind of hit the highlights here. One is that there'll be a bond transcript prepared, and that's typically done by the bond attorney. And that's the closing documents are all, that's what the bond transcript encompasses, is all the documents, the final bond resolution, other related bond documents, they're all part of the transcript, so that's one of the requirements. The second is that there's a form that's filed with the IRS called 8038B, that is part of the transcript. That's again prepared by the bond attorney and part of the transcript. Then the third item, that you monitor your bond proceeds as you go forward. So for example, on the bonds that we just issued, the proceeds close, or you get the proceeds at the end of October. And so one of the requirements of the bond resolution is that you have to spend down the proceeds in a certain period of time, and then you also have to restrict the bond on the proceeds of the bonds. So, for example, just to go back to the bonds you just issued, you are issuing them at a 5.25% interest rate. The IRS does not want you to go out and invest them at higher than 5.25%. So that's one of the things that we just have to ensure that you're not out earning positive arbitrage or positive interest earnings on your bond proceeds. Another item is that you need to maintain these records, so that bond transcript and IRS paperwork that I referred to, you're supposed to hold on to those for at least the life of the bonds plus 3 years. So again, I'm sure Lori had a cabinet, and Jill will have a similar cabinet that she keeps the bond paperwork in. So that's a requirement. And then finally, if there is the requirement to do what's called continuing disclosure, that you would do so. That's just annual filing on an electronic database of the bond resolution or I'm sorry, not of the bond resolution, rather, but of your annual financial reports. For this bond that you just issued, it is not subject to continuing disclosure, but you do have previous bonds that did have that requirement. So we worked with your city on that, and Jill, I'm sure, and Lori previously made sure that those financial reports were filed through this electronic database. So again, Mayor, Council, this is just a policy you'll have to consider one time and not with each subsequent bond issue. It's just that you have this on record. And since we did have a new bond attorney come on board from Kennedy and Graven, that I think it's good to make sure that we have proper policies and procedures in place. And so approval of this resolution does just that. That was a mouthful, I know, but I can certainly address any questions you may have.
Yeah, Mayor, just 2 comments. Thanks, George. Bob here. I don't know if you can see me. I'm hiding. Just 2 comments about what George said. Everything George said is right, of course. So I'm not the bond attorney at Kennedy and Graven. Julie Eddington is the person that prepared this document and will help Jill going forward. So, but 2 comments. I think of a transcript of a bond deal as being a concept that maybe many of you are familiar with, like an abstract of title, right? An abstract of title is a little booklet that shows all of the documents that are related or impact that piece of property. A transcript is kind of the same thing, only with respect to a bond deal. It's everything that went into making the bond happen, and then on an ongoing basis, Jill will have to update that. And then that's point 2, is that you'll see from the policy, your city clerk, Jill, already has plenty to do. Well, let's be clear about that. And there's a whole long list of things here that she'll have to do. And that might be intimidating to you as counsel or to Jill. But as George said, essentially everything that Jill has to do, she's going to do under the guidance of either bond counsel or George and his firm or other folks that are experienced in how to put that stuff together. So Jill will actually have to compile the pieces of paper, but she can get a lot of help in doing that.
You're comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we just gotta go approve, get a motion to approve this.
Resolution number 924.
Resolution 924.
Make a motion that we approve resolution 924.
So I have a second. Motion made and second to approve bond issue 924. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, George.
Thanks, George.
Thank you all, thanks for your questions, what Bob was saying, I'm sorry to interject here, Bob, is don't lose that bond transcript.
Excellent advice, George. Yeah.
And so, thank you, council, thank you for all your questions and the opportunity to work with you again. Have a great evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Okay. Reese.
All right, good evening. Few updates today, so, federal water main leak, I know we have been talking about this for quite some time. Bill and I both reached out to the contractor to try and get a warranty bond, so we can finally close this one out. We already have paid the main portion of the contract, just the retainage that we're holding on to at this point, so it's about $2,200. So we've not received that back yet, so continue to ask and continue to push on it. And
At the very end of the day, the secretary out at Fitzgerald said she's gonna drop it off tomorrow, so I'll confirm with you that it's gonna be finally here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great news. Next on the agenda, we have the sanitary district, and then after that, like I said, there aren't any really major district updates that we're intending to see for quite some time.
They are gonna have,
There's a meeting, right, on Monday, there is a,
it's gonna
that's
be,
why I was just wondering if you knew what was up.
Nope, this is the first time hearing it.
It's a, probably we're gonna get a bunch of money from the legislature.
Yeah.
well, they're still trying to go into it. There's a meeting on 22nd, 25th or something.
That's Monday, well, I don't know, there's
There's two meetings coming up.
is there two, okay.
Yeah, I talked with them last week and again yesterday. So they're still gonna try to get it. They feel there's a chance at it yet, so they asked me about it, I said, just do it. I mean, we had everybody for it except for one person. Before. So but then they didn't pass the bond resolution with the state, so that's why we didn't, it's kind of come to a standstill, but now they're trying to get it back going again.
Oh, no, that's awesome news, that's the first time hearing it.
So is there some way to pass through our state a way for us to get our money without necessarily approving that whole bond?
Well, they're looking for that first part for the land and all that, the first 6 million. That's what they're trying to get cleared, so they can move forward on it. Because if they get that, it's gonna be a lot easier to get the rest of it.
So they could go ahead and approve that much and do the rest some down the road.
Yep.
Do they have an interest timeline on there, or is that just kind of the discussion we were starting to have?
Well, they're trying to get a meeting with the legislature there now and a few of the candidates to see where they stand on it. And they asked me about it, and I said, it's best before the vote come out even to get their stands on it. If they're against it, we'll just put it in there against it. Like I say, just about everyone we talked with for Patrice, they were for it. Well, yeah, you know that, yeah. But then they hadn't had a meeting now since about June or May or something. So now they're trying to get to, if we can get that 6 million is what it's squared away at.
No, that's awesome news. No, I'd love to hear that.
Mayor, do you mind if I ask Reese a question back on the water main loop before? It looks like you have several things on 4th Street and Broadway project. Because Jill and I, city clerk and I briefly talked about getting the warranty bond and sort of how that works. So this is truly just a question, I'm not a quiz. What I said to Jill was that, in my experience, typically what would happen is when everything was buttoned up, including the warranty bond comes in, you would typically then come to the council and say, everything looks good, and now you can accept the project. Is that how we do it here in Goodhue? Is there a final step where the council says everything is good to go and we can make the final payment? Or is that done administratively?
So we've done it more as substantial completion.
Yep.
And then it's more of substantial final, but then once we issue our final payment, that's really acceptance of the work at that time. So it wouldn't necessarily be, Jill just paying the invoice, it would be coming back, I would have a pay application for the council, and then we would approve that to actually close up the project. So there's a couple of obviously documents that will go along with that, but
Sure.
we kind of just moved it all in one.
And Mayor, sorry, I can do this offline, I could have just called you, but in your pay estimates, when they come in, pay requests to the council, you have the contractors sign those before you bring them forward, is that
Correct.
perfect? Okay,
The
great,
JCBC forms.
awesome, great, thank you,
And everything's signed off on that last one too, so.
perfect. Good.
Since we're on that then, and I know the answer with talking with you, and maybe this is just jumping to what you would say when you come back 2 weeks from now, if we get the warranty bond. But as we had a conversation today about we're not paying them in full.
That is going to be paid in full, so the amount that they requested was that $2,900. There was actually a change order
Okay.
that reduced that by $700. So that is that difference from the 29 to 22 that's actually remaining for retainage.
Okay, because they didn't finish that curb part.
Correct. There was a piece of curb on the north side, so this is for the water main loop. So at that dead end street on the north side, with this third, they never patched it back in.
Okay. So like I got the conversation with you, but these guys may not. So that's why some of you may want to. We all need to know that information. That
It's not done.
And so basically, we asked them to do this for quite some time. And
3 years.
we just did not, we said, well, let's take another contract and try to close it out.
So could we put that in, like, with this?
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just gonna wreck everything down there if you don't put it back.
Yep, we definitely have that back in. It was like, I forget how long the curve it was, but it was only 30-something feet or so, if I remember right. So,
Yeah, it was to get the water and that through it, is basically what it was.
exactly. So, yeah. we can put that in.
Otherwise, about 4 years it'd be down there, it'd be all washed out again.
And the second part of this, for sanitary district, at the last meeting, you did ask me to develop a proposal to kind of take the next step and start looking at costs and what that would impact the fees. So kind of what I was looking at is updating the overall costs, starting to look at an agreement with Rhoda, depending on what that would look like, and then starting to run some O&M costs, and some funding situations through that. I guess if I'm hearing that there may be some movement, do we want to hold on this before we really move forward, or do we want to move forward with this now? I guess if there is some movement on the legislature end, it might be worth staying on this, but I also don't want to take too much further down the road, and I want to help fast the legislature is moving.
What about if you, well, that brings up to you. If you did, the part of, you know, for our lift station and going down to Denver. I mean, that part,
About the cost of what that would be.
Yeah, no matter what happens, it's almost a given we have to do something.
Yeah, that would have to be done. But
That's if we can, obviously, district does take place and some road control.
but we might have to do that anyway, if we decide. I mean, one of these was that you had said, the lift station and pump to Zub Road back in February of 21. So I guess I was just looking at that.
So we would go through and update that, but my cost back there, I think need to be updated, and then this would kind of take the next piece of it, because if you're looking at rates and what you may need to increase that, that's only capital cost. So that does not include any ongoing maintenance, any ongoing operations costs. So that's kind of what I was looking at, taking the next step,
Oh,
just so that
okay,
you
I
get a
see.
complete
I see.
picture, and it's not just me saying, oh, wow, it's gonna be 10% more than saying,
Yeah.
oh, this is the extra cost.
So does that make sense to you, or should we just wait and see? Wait until we find out what's going on? Next meeting?
So there's gonna be 2 meetings in the next week. Take it back.
I think the first one's Monday, isn't it?
Pardon?
Isn't the first one Monday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 10:30 in the morning or
Yeah.
something.
So we could hold off for 2 weeks. see what the meeting's
Good with that.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could just say, and I don't know what I'm talking about, so ignore me if I'm saying something silly, but one question I might ask if I was in the meeting coming up about the sanitary district would be, would having Reese do that sort of, if this doesn't work out, we gotta do this, would that be useful in the legislative process? I mean, sometimes that one legislator that hasn't been on board needs a little reason to change his or her mind. And, you know, it's possible that the alternative, not looking as good as the district, might be something that helps get it over the top. So, but I don't know if that's the case. So you'd have to ask somebody who actually knows what's going on with the legislative process. But that kind of evidence is helpful sometimes to the legislators,
So
so.
I think it's, city administrator of Pine Island. It's,
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised I haven't heard about it yet, but I haven't talked to her.
Yeah,
I haven't
that's right.
talked to her today, so I'm sure that she'll give me a call tomorrow and let me know what's going on, but.
yeah, cause I think her and the mayor are the two that
Yeah,
set this up.
yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I think it's a legitimate, and I'm happy to ask too, but I mean, it might be better coming from whoever's gonna be in the room, actually, just to say, we might have to, you know, if this doesn't work, we have to do this. Is that can be helpful to know what that looks like? Because it may be helpful to the legislator or two that are on the fence about whether to approve this.
It's a good point.
I would look at some of that, just, I know,
Yeah,
this kind of been going for quite a while, but yeah, really the options that are really gonna end up
yeah,
feasible are, you know, sanitary district is one. Second would be pumping to Zimbrota.
right,
And then having them treat it. Third would be rebuilding a new plant, and then you're likely going to need a water treatment plant as well, because the biggest driver of that is they're getting a chloride requirement. And so a lot of those chlorides come from people's water softeners.
mm-hmm,
And so you're either gonna put in a requirement that everyone in town needs to remove their water softeners, and you probably do that anyways.
Sure.
but Then you just wouldn't have soft water in your home.
Yep.
And then, you know, assuming people want soft water, then you would go and you would build a water plant.
and Mayor, if I could just say, all I was saying, Reese, is that it seems to me like the argument that redoing the existing facilities and doing that on a community basis, that making the argument that that's less efficient than a district is an easy argument to make, but maybe the argument that pumping to Zimbrota, maybe it's not obvious to legislators, well, why not do that? That sounds perfectly sensible, and I suspect that would be also less efficient than working together, but maybe not. I don't know what the facts are, so, you know, that's why.
Honestly, for the city, it's probably a similar situation with pumping to Zimbrota and the sanitary district.
Okay.
But having the district itself, having multiple communities working together, the state was really on board with that, and the PCA was really on board with that, because I mean, it kind of sets a model for lots of the small communities, because there's a lot of aging infrastructure around the state. So, you know, from the city standpoint, you're gonna be looking at, you know, if you do Hunters on Road or the sanitary district, you're gonna have an agreement either with some road for, you know, that treatment and what your future growth would be. And then same thing with the sanitary district, it's just which entity
Mhm.
does it, and then how are those costs split between the two.
Yeah, cause the meetings that I was in, they were looking at this being the model district for the state. So, I mean, that's why everybody was for it, or just about everybody was for it.
Yeah, and Mayor and Council, I mean, I don't know, that sounds exactly right. I don't know about whether this is the model or not, but I sure can tell you that, as Reese just said, I mean, failing or aging wastewater treatment facilities is not a problem that's unique here. I mean, that's happening in a lot of places around the state. So it does need to be a new way of doing this stuff going
And
forward.
they were talking about instead of everybody dumping so much into it, it all goes to one center place to get treated.
Yep.
So it's a lot less for everybody to be checking plants out instead, and that's one of the models for it.
Yep.
And the DNR was kind of really behind this idea.
The DNR really wanted to go that
There would
direction.
be less discharge in multiple places rather than just one. So, yeah, the DNR liked it. So, the whole, going, you know, multiple cities going to some program.
Well, good examples, like Duluth Superior, they have a Western Wisconsin, or Western Superior,
WLSD, right?
WLS.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
WLSSD.
Western Lake Superior Sanitary District.
I mean, that's gonna be, that's a lot larger than what they're looking at here, but the same basic concept, many communities.
Look at the councils the same way.
Treating it in one area.
Well, we'll just see what they bring up
Absolutely.
after Monday. Cause I mean, yeah, you can be on that too.
Yeah,
I hope you are.
before me, I would enjoy it.
Sounds like an invitation right there.
No, I'd rather have you on board, see, in case we screw something up, you know. Doesn't take a lot.
I think these, I change them every month.
Yeah.
I think these drain it. Sorry, I guess I can't hear you.
All right, perfect. Hopefully this is on now. I guess the last update that I had was on construction project for 4th and Broadway. Obviously, most of the work has been continuing to go on Broadway Street. So just now, they were just about finished with the water main extension. They just need to put on the hydrant assembly at the end of the street tomorrow morning, and then they should have the water in. Storm sewer, they're gonna jump back going on storm sewer and complete the rest of those. I would anticipate those are probably end of this week and then through all of next week before the time they get all the storm sewer in.
So I have a question before we go too far.
Yes.
How are these manholes working out?
So there's a few manholes that, well, they sent some structures that were not correct. So we had marked them up and they did not correct said markups. So they had to cut down a couple of the structures. So we're looking at that, and you know, that's really a concrete precaster issue.
So that's who's gonna be paying this instead of us?
Yeah, we're not paying for that.
That's, I mean, I don't
Absolutely not.
know if the rest of the council wanna explain what it
Yeah,
is.
so essentially the way we call it out on our plans and the way MnDOT calls it out, and so this is nothing new, we call out from the top of the curb to like the invert of a sanitary or a storm manhole. And so what a lot of these precasters end up doing is on their shop drawings that we come back and review, and they say, okay, here's what we're gonna build and what we're gonna send. They say, okay, well, the rim is at, they're calling the rim elevation, which really should be, they're calling that the top of curb, so that, I don't know if I'm explaining this really well. I could draw a picture a little bit better, but they're essentially building it so they're not accounting for the curb height. So they have an extra 6 inches or so of structure height that needed to get cut down because that was not correct. And like I said, we've made the note on it multiple times and it still came unfortunately incorrect. So that is the extra work that they had to do. So then they had to cut it down and then it'll work appropriately. So at the end of the day, it'll still work and function appropriately, but they had to do a little bit of extra cutting on the top of the structure.
So then what about that structure that was from 4th Street that was totally mismeasured and missent, that is now just sitting on 5th's trailer?
Yep.
What's gonna happen with that? Who's paying for that?
That's honestly something I still need to work out with the contractor. So
Okay.
we're still working through some of that. I haven't heard anything. That's what actually Jason and I were talking about earlier is, I don't know, they haven't requested anything. I haven't seen anything. And so we're trying to make sure that that's all squared away. So I should have a better answer for you here at for the next pay application.
Okay.
We appreciate that idea of you making sure we're not paying for things that weren't right or, and, not just, letting it slide. So I appreciate that kind of work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, we have a contract for a reason and they do that for a reason. So yeah, like I was mentioning, obviously they were working on temp water, got the water in. Primarily storm sewer will be done. Like I said, probably end of next week. After that, they'll come through, and I think you'll start to see it go fairly quickly once they have all the utilities done. So once storm is in over here on Broadway, they're gonna come out and they're gonna subcut out the roadway. They're gonna roll out some fabric, and then they're gonna put down the aggregate base. And then once all that is in, then they should have their concrete guys coming in and pouring curb. So they'll have a period of time, probably I'll call it a week or so while the curb is curing, where you probably won't see anything going on out here. But once that's cured, then they can have the asphalt folks come in and put the first lift down.
So when do you figure they're gonna start with the curb?
If I had to guess, it's probably 2.5 weeks out.
And we're not gonna have an issue if it gets cold.
No, I mean, really the curb itself, generally speaking, there's a few different ways you can do it. If it starts to get too cold, they can put blanket down on top of it and they can protect it. So really, as long as our high temperatures are getting up into the mid upper 40s, we're gonna be generally okay to pour concrete. But it's really those overnight lows, and you just really need to protect that from frost. And so that's why they have like some heating blankets or things like that. But the biggest thing is gonna be the colder it gets, the longer it takes for curb to cure. And so it might, instead of a 5-day turnaround, it might be a week and a half turnaround. So then, once you start pushing that far, then your bituminous plants may start shutting down. But I'm not really worried about that at this time. Usually they're shutting down around 2nd, 3rd week in November for the bituminous plants. So I'm still fairly confident that they're going to finish this year without much issue until, barring any major issues, but I don't really see that happening. So.
Is it that trench for this next drainage to across the road?
Yes. Yep, so that'll be the large pipe that you're seeing, that large black pipe. That'll be on the south side here. And yeah, we'll still have that center section that they'll continue through right by your house.
Will they open that? Will there be a way to get through morning and night, you think, or maybe not?
You'll probably have a few hours of downtime where you probably won't be able to get through, but I think every intent has been to keep it open and accessible as much as possible. So there will be some time when they're obviously digging it, but.
Jason?
Well, is there, if we have to run in trouble wall here, this last big pipe, is there a cutoff time so we can at least get the street paved for winter? You can't get that done? In case they run into problems?
It's probably a few weeks out before I would even consider it a problem, but the cutoff, if I had to guess, end of October.
Just it needs to get some sort of base on it, for sure.
Yep.
For plowing.
And the base itself, they'll be able to get the rock in. Once you see the subcut going, I mean, I would think they'll have that done in a few days. It's really gonna go quick.
That one on 4th Street is just about ready for curbing.
Yep. So, yep. Yeah, we're probably a few weeks from really raising a red flag here yet.
No, just you gotta ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, other than that, that's really what I had, unless there's any questions I can answer or help with.
My answer, mine was on them storm, catch basins.
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you, please. Building permits with Terry.
Okay, so we're not quite ready to ask for the building permit yet. What Dana and I, my husband, are here to ask for tonight is, we're working on buying a lot It's 1007 Joyce Avenue is a lot that we're interested in. We want to build a house kind of like Mr. Rodney Wilson did. And he came down here and asked for a variance because the back, we were told needs to be 35 feet off the back property line. And we'd like to put a covered porch. And we're going to be 4 foot in, we're asking for a 4-foot variance, I guess. So our difference is though Mr. Wilson built like a 3-season, almost a 4-season, enclosed like almost a room, we just are asking to build a covered porch. So it's kind of like a patio with a roof on it. So
Is this the same?
it's the same drawing as basically his same house.
Yeah, that I know, you and I
Yeah.
have talked about that,
Yeah,
but I was just wondering on the variances, did he get 4 foot or 2 foot?
4.
He did get 4.
Mm-hmm.
You say it's just gonna be a porch,
It's a covered porch.
covered porch?
Yeah. No walls. So not really a room. No walls. Just a covered porch.
Covered patio.
Covered patio, yes.
That's, makes it a little easier for him,
Yeah.
because it's not gonna be a porch, it's a patio with the roof on it.
Yes. Yes. So we're looking at building a slab on grade home.
And who is, who will be behind you there, or?
It's kind of that long skinny lot that
Right next to
they
Evan
just, yep, they just finished their house there, so there's not really a house gonna be behind us. It's that long skinny lot. John Holst.
Do it. I don't know if you need to talk to them at all about, if it will affect them, or will it, are they okay with that too? I mean, I think some guys are,
Yeah, that's usually when I built my garage, I made sure all the neighbors, I had them all in writing, they're all fair and they're fine with it, that helped.
Okay.
As long as everybody's on board with it and it's not a problem, I wouldn't have a problem with it, I guess.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I didn't understand coming in that this was kind of a variance thing, not a building permit thing, so I didn't actually pull up your city code language about this, but I think we'd find if we were looking at the zoning variance language you have in your code, you have to have a public hearing on a variance. So I'm not suggesting at all that this is inappropriate. It sounds like you've done something like this previously, but I think we'd find if we looked at your code that you need to give notice to the folks around the property that would be impacted by it and have them have the
Yeah,
right to have
we've
comment.
always said, anybody, if the city owned a lot behind the lake for Rodney Wilson, it was different.
Mhm.
But these, yeah, you'd almost have to go to Gall and just show him this and John Holst.
Okay.
And the city owns the one next to it, so. But you gotta get writing from them saying it's okay. And I mean, we could almost pass it on condition that they have that.
Well, Mayor and Council, I think you need to check your code on that. I think we have to give the notice to neighbors before the council approves this. So I think the answer is no.
Okay, no, that's what I'm asking.
Can I hold you? Or you're-
No, it won't. No.
You'll be all right doing that?
Yeah.
Good. Good. 'Cause I think the council is probably all right with the variance, as long as.
Yeah, like I say, if your neighbors are good with it, I'm fine with it, you're still 31 feet to the property line, so. It
Yeah.
isn't like you're, impending on their property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mayor and Council, you can appreciate, I mean, occasionally what happens is somebody has a problem with it, but councils grant the variance anyway. I mean, you may have to make a hard decision, but you want to make sure that you have all the input from the folks that will be impacted before you make that decision, so.
All right. Thank you very much.
And then, so maybe a little bit more information is you're not doing that this year yet.
No,
You're
we look,
doing it next spring.
yes.
So she's not starting this house right now. I'm not sure that she had mentioned that. And so we have some time, however, how you have your plans and then you get your building permit and all of that other information. And then, did you say we have to hold a public meeting for that?
Well, I have to look at your code. I didn't know this was a
Okay.
variance, so. I
And,
have to look at
and
it.
so I'll be in touch with you with that part of it. And then if you wanna, I guess she can talk to her neighbors and then.
Sure, yeah.
We'll be in
We
touch,
will.
but just so you know, it's not like she's starting it November, December. She's gonna finish, the paperwork for buying the lot. She brought this to our attention, just brought it tonight, so it's not until a spring house project, so.
Sure. And Jill, you make a good point, and for your benefit, you know, sometimes cities have to send out notices to people, hold hearings or whatever, and if you've already talked to them, that's a lot nicer than getting a letter from the
Yeah.
city saying, you know, so I think it's always a good idea if you can talk to people, before the city sets something up.
Okay, we'll do that.
So that's Jason, he's Public Works, so you'll see him around.
He's just a nosy stranger sitting there.
Nosy citizen.
Thank you, and then, like I say, get your, and then come back.
Come back to the,
Yeah, we'll be in touch, when you're ready to come back, you know, and if you're ready in 2 weeks or in a month, whatever, we'll keep it up to date.
Okay, let's go on to Josh Lexville fence, get something in here on that? That's going for patio.
So I actually had some questions on the fence. I reached out to Josh and talked to him. It's gonna be a 4-foot tall chain link fence. You know, I guess those were my questions, basically was material and height. So I guess that answers.
Where is this at?
It,
Which side of the place? It's the northwest.
you know, I didn't even ask that. That's a good question. I didn't even ask that. I was just curious.
No,
I don't see any north, south, east, west.
you got an address so I could picture it in my mind, yeah.
100 or one, yeah.
That's 108 first down.
You know where,
All right, where Josh Boonsick used to live?
No, that's,
no, he's up in the new section across from,
Oh, okay.
what other Lexville lives up there?
Matt.
Matt,
Matt.
that's one,
He's basically
100.
across the street and one,
1008.
yeah, not 108, 1008.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, 1008.
Now, they don't need to talk to the neighbors about a fence if it's installed according to the codes, right?
Correct, he's not asking for the areas.
Yeah, no, Mayor and Council, I think the next item up here is talking about your ordinances about fences, but yeah, no, to build a fence, as long as it complies with the city's requirements for fences, you just pull a permit and you put up the fence.
Have we've done a check as far as this complying with ordinances?
well, I mean, we hit his material, it would be,
Yeah,
in compliance, and then his setbacks, and so then,
yeah, Okay.
he has setbacks, and so, since we've changed the, cause we go to the county now with the fences because of prior, situations that,
The rows and the lots.
yes.
yeah.
And so, with that, then Jason gets the task of, once it is approved by city, approved by county, and then before they start, Public Works gets to go out there and map it out and mark it off, that they stay within their setbacks, because there's, ultimately, the council is not the policing of it. You know, you got how many houses, you can't be driving around all of the time, so, Public Works gets the task of going and checking on you, so that's, I briefly talked to Bob about this today, why is the county involved, and I just wanted to, you brought it up too, pointed it out, that's why, because the bigger Goodhue is going to get, the harder it is for people to get flagged on things, and we just need to follow the code and the ordinances, because, we've had some situations.
They're building inspectors.
Yeah, and so then they're the building inspectors, so the county does have some codes on it too, that ours are much, on a smaller level, theirs are not really vague, but they don't see what we see. But you have, what's it called, in each different, subdivisions, you have different callings that you allow. And so this way, Public Works would just be able to manage that part of that aspect of it, so if that helps.
Yeah, and Mayor and Council, if I could just add to that, I agree with what Jill said, but sometimes in my job, get to be the bearer of bad news, and maybe I am, maybe I'm not, I don't know, but I'm not sure. So I'm looking at this, that shows the sort of the dimensions of the fence. The changes to your fence ordinance, which I think again is the next thing up on the agenda here. One of the changes to your fence ordinance would say that the plan that you get when somebody wants to put a fence up is supposed to show the property lines and the fence in relation to the property line.
And that's what I
It
was
doesn't
looking
literally have to be a survey, although I think you encourage people to give a survey, but they have to show the property lines and then show where the fence is gonna be in relation to the property lines, because you have requirements about how far off of the street right away and how far off property lines the fence is gonna go. So I don't think that I could be able to tell, looking at this, where the fence is in relation to the property line. So, and then I think to Jill's point, after you get that information, then your staff and your good folks that work here can go out and confirm what you've been shown on the map. Is the fence going up where it is supposed to be in relation to the property line?
Yeah, and that's what we usually ask for, because then there's usually a 5-foot easement around each side of the lot just for utility easements. Yeah. And I'm looking here at 70 feet by 80 feet, it doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah, I mean, this fence may fit within the dimensions of the lot, but I don't think you can tell where it is in relation to the lot, so.
So I guess, I'd like to make a motion to, table this, this building permit until, I guess, we realize, we get a location on where it is in retrospect to his, house and the property lines.
No, I agree 100% with you.
Second that.
Motion's made, second to table the fence permit, all in favor say aye.
Alright.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Who will, somebody gonna tell him why?
Yeah.
Deal with that, okay.
Okay, the next one is Mike Lodemeyer for Howard Hendricks. When I look at this here, it doesn't tell me anything either. Cause he's 34 feet from the back of his yard to the house. There's no way he's gonna put a porch on the back. Is it going on the side? Kinda looks to me like maybe that's what he's talking about, but
Well, it says he's gonna replace an existing deck.
well, the deck goes to the back.
It does, okay. Yeah.
Unless the deck is at 34 feet.
Yeah, and I'd like to say I can't tell either.
I think it's 12 feet wide,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so from the house, it's gonna stick 12 feet back. But I figured I'd just,
Still giving 34 feet to the lot line.
Well, it looks like it's from the house to the lot line is the 34 feet.
yeah.
It's so hard to tell.
I can't, I couldn't read, I looked at it twice.
Cause I'm only seeing, there's the roof line right there.
Yep, exactly, that looks like the feet of the roof.
But then he said the 12 feet would be 34 feet, that's all here.
Okay, well,
I mean, that's what I'm looking at, but I can't be positive on it.
yeah, I'm looking at it from the phone satellite view. Doesn't really help anything. Just,
No, but you can see the shadow where the roof line stops. And then where, like right here, the roof line stops here and then it's 34 feet. So you'd still need a 1 foot variance. But I don't know if he's got it already with that deck, so
Yeah.
I don't know how that goes, Counselor.
Well, Mayor, I don't have an answer, but I have a question. and someday I'm gonna come here and never ask questions and just give answers. But let me ask the question, because I've seen it a couple of times here. So in your packet, you have a couple of different building permit application forms that are the item that's in your packet about, this one is the Loader application. And I just wonder, how does the building official approval process work? If somebody could help me understand how that works. I see that this is initialed by somebody for environmental health approval, and then I see a permit number and an issue date, but I don't see a signature by a building official, and I don't see any of the fees filled
Okay,
out.
so that's
Yeah.
me just accepting
Yep.
it in.
Okay,
And so if this were to get approved by council, I have to give it to a number.
yep,
So if this is approved, then therefore I send it in.
got it. So and the the
And-
building official is
Yep,
a
so then
county official?
The
or
county
you
will
have-
send
okay.
all of this back in,
Okay.
back to me with all of that filled in.
And then last question I promise, the county's building officials normally wouldn't do checking of things like setbacks. Is that true here? That the building official isn't gonna go out and check your zoning setback
Correct.
requirement against where the thing is
we
going?
have-
Yeah, okay.
Maintenance,
That's the point of your approval here tonight.
street maintenance, and
Got it.
that does it.
Okay, so I asked all my questions about that. What was your question to me? Sorry?
Well, my question is, they got a deck on there,
Yeah.
34 feet.
Yep,
If it's been on there for so long,
Yep.
it's been on there for 40 years,
yep,
is that
yeah, it's what we
grandfathered in?
We call it grandfathered, but here's the trick on grandfathering, which people love to throw that term around. If, in this case, let's use this one, the deck. If the deck went up at a time when putting it there was legal, in other words, there was no 35-foot setback, then it's grandfathered. If the deck went up and there was a 35-foot setback and nobody just caught it, they just put it up and, they put it a foot too close, it's not grandfathered. You can't put things up in violation of the zoning code, even if the city doesn't catch it, it's not grandfathered.
No, and I'm trying to think of when we went with the zoning, this house was put in at 73. I think.
75.
75.
Probably predates your zoning, but I guess I don't know when your zoning
Yeah,
code
I'm
is.
thinking the zoning started at 77,
Okay.
but I'm not positive.
It's a legitimate question, because you're right, if the deck where it sits now is grandfathered, they don't need a variance to rebuild the deck there. They're entitled to rebuild the existing deck in the existing place. So that's a good question to ask. When did the deck go on and when did the zoning code get adopted? You gotta figure that out to know if they're grandfathered or not.
So this is another one we have to table.
I would say table it until we figure out either that or ask them to talk to the neighbors about a variance. Because it's a 1-foot variance on it, the way I'm looking.
And I was saying 35-foot because I heard you say that. I don't
It
know
is
if it's,
35,
okay, yeah, so, very, very good.
Table this one too until either he gets the, discussion with the neighbors or.
Find it, well, we could find out from Jill when we adopted our
Yeah,
zoning ordinance. And then we gotta find out when that was put in.
Do we even know where the files from 77 will be?
Well, they should be listed on for that part of it. For certain things, I mean, we have that deal in the paper even that states when it was started.
Wait, what deal?
Well, there's a sheet, zoning sheet. You ever see it? Right there.
Did you just carry that around your pocket?
Hey, magic!
I was.
Really? No, that, we've gone by that for everything.
Can I see that, Jason?
And we updated it here a while back.
Yeah. Let me write it down. Where do I?
Yeah, when you get it transcribed, then you can teach me a thing or two on it.
Hey, this was Thursday, January 1st, 1970.
So it was 70, okay. I thought it was after this, because when this housing development went in, is when I know it was really pushing the zoning.
I mean, it sounds, again, I don't want to make rules up where we don't need rules, but
I think-
it's worth looking at, you know, when it goes in and you gotta follow the
But,
rules.
but I think then basically what they gotta do is get the 1 foot easement,
The variance, yeah.
their variance on that, yeah. That'd be the best way of going about this, so we don't have somebody else coming back at us.
So he's gotta find, Mike, Hendricks has to ask for 1 foot easement?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
That'd be the smartest way of doing this, I think.
I agree.
So I get a motion to table this one too.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to table Mike Lorimer's variance, all in favor, or building permit, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Now we'll go into city ordinance number 152.
You got public works.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the next thing in my package.
I didn't.
Public works update, Jace?
Well, I thought I was gonna have a conflict tonight, so I came in to talk to Reese. He pretty much answered some of the stuff I was gonna talk to you about. Other than that, we've been just getting stuff ready now this week for winter, doing some maintenance, getting the pool house ready for winter too. Just your general maintenance stuff. I plan on flushing hydrants here in a couple weeks when they get this storm done, so they're not fighting with the water coming through. I guess that's about what we got going on. If you got any questions?
How did that hydrant replacement go, or fix and go?
We got that done.
That go, I mean,
Well, it went good. We had we had to rebuild the whole thing when it was all said and done, but we had parts in the shop and he had to run and get one thing. Other than that, that hydrant by the sewer plant now is fixed. And if you do see a truck in town the next couple days getting water, Roger's Sand and Gravel will be getting some from us for the paving project out on 9. So they'll probably be using that one.
So do they have their own meter then,
Yep,
with their own backflow preventer on it?
yep. They got everything.
so do you feel confident now on these hydrants?
Oh yeah. They weren't too hard.
No, I know,
STVs.
but you and I talked about it.
Right. Core and Main came and helped us do that one, because that's where we got the head from, and it's basically just take it all apart piece by piece, put the seals back in.
So what was broken in it?
Well, it was just that somebody had reefed on the ends where you hook the hoses up, so you couldn't get them loose. And then it cranked real hard, so all the threads were stripped. So we had to put a whole new rod in it, new seals, all the new insides, and a new head. And then after that, it was fine. So I think there's a few more in town. We're thinking about getting some parts, so when we do flush, we can mark them off and try to rebuild them yet this winter, or if not, next spring. If they completely don't work, we'll rebuild them. If they work and we can get through the winter, we'll probably just wait till spring.
Are you flushing hydrants?
I'm gonna talk to you tomorrow about putting an ad in the paper. I'm waiting to see when they get this,
Okay.
cause the water from part of town's gonna run down through it here, and Corey doesn't wanna be dealing with the mud, so.
Yeah.
Probably be a couple weeks yet.
It would be more fun if they do.
I thought it would be fun too, but they kinda frowned upon that. I'd have to provide muck boots, he said.
So I got a question back on the street project, that culvert you're putting in. Is there gonna be the 2 culverts side by side there?
Yeah.
So you're just adding one, you're not taking the other one out?
Yes, we're adding on, so basically, from the south here, it has a blind connection into the existing one, so we're gonna take that offline and route that alongside the existing one, so then we have extra capacity to get through there, because it seemed, based on the drainage area, it seemed fairly undersized.
Well, Kyle said it was backing up by his yard and stuff before, so.
I mean, that dish, you can't fix that with a street project, so
No,
that.
that used to be, that culvert,
Yeah.
this old culverts that we followed. Because there used to just be a ditch through there, I mean, about a 5-foot ditch. And we put the culverts in there so we could sell the lots, actually. So that they were used culverts in the first place, and that's why they look so bad if you put a camera down in them. It was just to get by so we could, you know, instead of washing that ditch all the way, just put culverts in it. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with you're doing. That's why I'm asking, because if you're just gonna add it, you know, then I couldn't see how that water from the flushing the hydrants, but if you're gonna open that side up, then I could see it. That's what I was asking. Thank you.
I guess the other thing I was gonna say, since the last meeting, I mean, the water tower's been back online. We put it on that last Wednesday before the meeting, but I haven't got a report back from KLM yet. I don't know if they've reached out to you with anything. They said it would take a couple weeks, so hopefully by next time, they should have that taken care of, or at least something I can tell you guys about it, other than that it's been cleaned and if there's any repairs done. I know one guy was out of the office, I emailed him, so I'm sure they're working on it. But I think that all went well. I didn't hear too many issues with that when it was down, so. Anything else you guys need?
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Nobody from the police department is here.
No, Josh said last night he wasn't gonna be here, I think he's working tonight.
Okay, that's fine. Now we can go into amend the ordinances.
Who put this together and how did we get this put together again?
Do you want me to dive in? Oh, I thought you were gonna, okay.
Take care of
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, Jill asked us to make a couple of revisions to your fence ordinance. She forwarded some minutes of a meeting before I was around here, where council directed a couple of changes. I will tell you, one thing we did that your minutes didn't reflect you wanted us to do, but we did it anyway, was there was some sort of organizational things with the ordinance, the way it was set up before, and we kind of moved things around to make it kind of read a little bit better and a little bit clearer. So a lot of things in your existing ordinance just sort of got moved around. But I think, and Jill will correct me if I'm wrong, I think basically the only real meaningful changes we made to your current fence requirements were, one, we added this language in, if you're looking at the thing in your packet, in subdivision 2B, the language there about what an application needs to contain. Your language before talked about needing to apply to put up a fence, but it didn't exactly spell out what you needed to supply. And so one of the important things I already mentioned earlier tonight, which was a map or a drawing or a survey showing the property lines in relation to where you're proposing to put your fence. And then the other things are just basic, you know, who you are and where you live and where the fence is going to go. So that was one thing that the minutes reflected you want us to do. And the other thing was we inserted the idea that the approval process is what I was asking about, which was that you approve the request first, and then it goes to the county for approval. And apparently you had some situation where making that clear that the county needed to approve was important. And so you wanted, and Jill passed along to us, wanting to put into your ordinance language that fact, that the county has to sign off on the fence request too. So that's essentially all the changes. They're not a big deal. They're just to clarify, I think, what your requirements are. The one other thing I would say, though, just since I have your attention about your ordinances, and Jill and I talked a little bit today about this. So you've got several ordinances on your website that are just ordinance number, in this case, number 152. And then separately on your website, you've got a city code. Right, you've got a code book that talks about different chapters and different areas of your legal requirements in a code book. Those ordinances, some of those ordinances that are sort of loose ordinances like this one, really ought to be in your code, right? Your code book in a perfect world contains all of the rules of the game here in Goodhue. So it would be best if we could over time start incorporating, instead of having ordinance 152 and ordinance 212 and some loose ordinances in addition to your code book, it would be better to get those things into your code book. And so I only point that out because ordinance 152 has this numbering. You see how the ordinance is numbered, section 9.51, subdivision 1, 2, 3, 4? That seems to be referring to section 9.51 of your city code. That isn't really where this makes sense for it to go. It really shouldn't go in a section 9.51. It should go in a different part of your code. So I'm blathering on lawyer stuff, but it would be better if we started to organize your city code into the same topics in each chapter so that people knew where to find the rules about putting up a fence. Right? I mean, that's the point of a code book, is to make it easier for the public and frankly for me and for you, easier for everybody to find where the rules are that the city has. So I guess this is an opportunity for me to say all that and for you to say back to me if you agree with that. Go ahead and make this ordinance be in the right place in our city code and then get it put into the city code after you adopt it. And then last thing I'll say is that you don't see changes here, right? The document in your packet doesn't show changes to anything. And so really the way we would tee this up, and you'll find that I do this a lot, is that a lot of times it's easier when you have a relatively short ordinance. This is only a couple pages long. Sometimes it's easier just to repeal the old one and adopt a new one that's basically the same thing. It just moves some things around. But that's easier to do than to adopt an ordinance that says line 305 is deleted and this is added. And I mean, that's really hard for people to understand what you're actually doing, right? You know, it looks like this. Here's what, I did. This is confusing for the public. Yeah, it's confusing, right? So it's a lot of times it's easier just to adopt a new ordinance that replaces the old one that somebody can just sit down and say, oh, here are the rules. So, so that's why you don't see individual changes in front of you.
So we can adopt this tonight, and then we can still assign you to do the code book.
Yeah, I said no before on that kind of an idea. On this one, I think that's fine. I would want you, though, if you make a motion to adopt this tonight, the actual piece of paper that we're going to have you, Mayor, and Jill sign won't be this piece of paper. I'm going to want to send to Jill a little bit revised version that changes these section numbers and actually puts in a place for your signatures, right? This thing in the packet doesn't have a place for anybody to sign. So you can approve this tonight subject to me and Jill getting the right piece of paper in front of you here.
Well, it makes it very simple that way. I mean,
No, it is.
100%.
Sounds pretty simple.
Right.
Yes. You guys do it.
Well, it's so much easier for the public once it's, like you say, then they can just go and see.
So can I get a motion to approve ordinance 152?
I'll motion.
Motion made and second to adopt the motion.
And I'm sorry, I apologize, just a clarification. So the document in the packet, I don't know what the number is going to be. It's not going to be ordinance number 152, right? Ordinance number 152.
Fence walks and.
Yeah, if you could do that, because I think it's going to be a different number. It won't be 152 again. It'll be a new number. So if we can just make a motion to adopt the ordinance. And then if you can include in that motion, and I realize it's already been made, so I'm talking to the maker and the seconder, but if you could also just agree with me, if you want this to go in your code book, can you make that part of the motion, and then I'll put in the right numbers in the document that I send down to Silda, to Jill to sign?
You want to amend your motion
Yeah.
to
I'll
that?
amend it to that, right. Because it does make sense.
Oh, it does.
It's the right way to do it. That's what it is.
I
Did you
agree.
state it though?
Yeah.
I'm always good with what he said. That's always okay.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah.
But it makes sense.
Okay, motion has been made and second to approve the fence permits as amended and have it put into the code book. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay, so I'm gonna chime in really quick. On that same note, we have a book that's about this thick. There's a whole lot of newspaper clippings that we gave to Mr. Pete Grimsrud through years and years and years. There's a lot of stuff that's not on my computer. It's all newspaper clippings of ordinances in the past. Lori struggled with it for 13 years. I'm certain other clerks had struggled with it too. They're not in any rhyme or reason order. So I'm suggesting to the council that we start taking a look at these because, I mean, yes, we have Bob's help and his assistants helping us do. But in order to start mainstreaming these and getting them utilized on the website, so that they're not coming in here and being like, oh, what's that about? It's in black and white, it's right there. Not this newspaper, because there's times, like even when this fence one came up, it had been so utilized that there was just a file that was readily sitting there next to me. That's fine. But if you go and pick ordinance 136, I'm gonna look for days. Or what 136
No,
was.
but if we get this code book updated,
Right.
it'd be in there, then you wouldn't have
Right.
to have that.
So, but what I'm suggesting is that we just continue to keep going, even whatever's not in the code, but whatever, even going into the ordinances, like it's going to be a lot of work, but I'm suggesting that, and I'm sharing,
Modernize?
what's that?
You're suggesting we modernize?
Well, yeah, and it'll
Yes.
simplify a lot better.
Yes, because even, I mean, y'all can stay here forever, but it's only gonna help the city, but it's also gonna help the council, that it's gonna help me, it's gonna help Public Works, it's gonna help everybody. It's not just to fix one ordinance and getting it into the code, it's going to be everything, like, I mean.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, well, and if it is, that's, you need to simplify it.
Honestly, the
make it
pieces
better.
of paper are starting to look like Pete's shirt. I mean, so how long are we gonna keep it for? Like that, I mean,
Kind of, yeah.
And Mayor and
Yeah.
Council, Jill doesn't need any support on that, but I'm gonna give it anyway. That is a time-consuming thing, right? Because you find an old ordinance, and then somebody has to manually enter it probably,
Right.
just to put it into a Word document, where all of your ordinances should be, and then also put onto your website. And so that task does take some time, and it's gonna take Jill and others some time to do that. Another example of that, just, and I think a lot of you know this, I mean, when I first came in and was nosing around, I wanted to see the ordinance about your gas commission, and it took a little time to sort of dig that out, and that's another example of sort of that ought to go somewhere that is relatively easy to find, and so it was there, it exists, but it took us a little effort to dig it up, so.
so I'm definitely not saying like 1 through 50 need to be done in a month, but let's just keep it on a roll that we start checking them off and, okay?
So
Okay.
should we maybe just bring one up for a meeting? Dig it out of the pile and,
Well, we could, or we could just, we could,
Yeah, and I don't think that sorry, go ahead.
no, go.
I don't think that there's gonna be any rhyme or method to what numbers to pick, other than, right now, we're gonna get into the, snow season, so we should hit with parking and start looking at the ones that are coming up for this winter. Like, what does your parking ordinance look like, and is it part of the code, what do you want with
On
it?
the snow removal.
Snow,
and
yeah,
parking-
all of the
parking
winter
ordinances
ones.
And everything else on the
Just gotta
winter.
take them as they come.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't, yeah, starting with number 1 is not gonna be that
No, of
practical.
course, yeah.
Unless it happens to be number 1, but I'm just certain.
But I
looking
think,
at the relevant ones for the
Correct.
for the
So if you have, I mean, I can start looking for them, but certainly I might miss one because I don't live in the city that I live in, you know how that runs out there, but, well, it's not.
we don't have time.
It's Colchester. I love every one of them, I'm related to them all, there's 125 of them. But, so, okay, so you said winter parking,
Well, I think anything,
Snow
of-
removal.
snow removal.
anything with the winter ordinances.
Okay, so if you think of a title name, since you're so familiar with all of the ordinance, just send me the message and make sure that I look for that specific one, so I don't miss any, whatever.
I can come in and help you a little bit. Okay. Go on to mayor's concerns. I've just been with the street projects and, working with Wayne on some lot issues up there. And then sanitary, I met with Mike Olson and him twice in the last month, or 2 weeks actually. So that was about it for me. Council concerns?
Can we go back to your concern? I didn't quite understand that, what you said. You said that was Mike Olson because of.
The sewer project. The sanitary
Okay,
district.
sanitary part, okay.
Yeah, I've been meeting with him, trying to get come up with a ways to see if we can get the other legislature on board, as it was met. So we've met a couple different times for that, so. And I'll be meeting with them again next week, so. Yeah, that was all it was about, so. So any council concerns?
How did we come on the speed monitoring? Nothing,
I heard it,
okay,
good job done.
no,
And I have heard from counties.
all right, I've just been noticing it more and more every town I go through now. Oh, yeah, yep, just about everybody has them, so that'll be a good thing, you know.
Josh is kind of overwhelmed right now, he's been talking with him too, so.
Okay, yeah.
Got one applicant today.
Did he? Yesterday he didn't have any,
Yep,
so it
just
must
got
have
in
just
her
came
mail
in.
today.
Yeah.
Did you say is it a feasible applicant?
And he didn't get to elaborate on it, I had a lot of calls today, so.
Is he decide for the hiring, or is that a council thing? Do we all meet for that, or?
You will
Okay.
all meet with it, he's just, they're addressed directly to him, so
Sure.
they wouldn't come to me,
Yep.
more of his realm of work, and then
Yeah, sure.
he'll,
He's gotta come to us for the hire.
Okay.
Public concerns? Going once, going twice, sold. Can I get a motion to pay the bills?
Get a chance to read it. Sure, it is.
So I asked this, I feel like every time. Receipts mean it was,
deposit.
Money coming in.
okay, so this is. I mean, I'm gonna remember that one this week.
And then the one from Bigelow, is that one that we pay the 46,000, we pay that right to the bank? Or?
Yep,
good.
so I received that money in, so, and deposited it, cause then we have to issue out the check,
Okay,
and then it does a check balance on our accounting
Sure.
program, so then that got brought right over to Paul, so then he'll get me a new payout,
good.
because we did a payout early.
The rest of them lots should be sold by the end of the year, so.
Great news, interesting.
So how many?
Well, there'd be the 3 on the west side. And I don't know if you bought that, if you paid for that last one on the north side, or east side.
So he did his January, or he did his February one, now he did his August/September with all of our changes. And then it's December,
December's have to have everything paid.
yeah, and that's the last
That'd be the
3.
last one.
And was there a penalty if he doesn't pay?
No, you just,
No, but he signed the agreement, and then you had talked to him, and then I know, Wayne had
Wayne.
talked to him since the death of one of the big, yeah, Wayne Gadian. Since there was a death in the Bigelow family, that's why our September/October got to be into September, because, they had that, and then we've got a new city attorney, so,
but they have paid down payment on everything,
Yeah.
so.
and
If
they
they-
were still saying that they want to go ahead with it and move along.
Yeah, they made a down payment, if they back out, we keep the money, so.
Oh, yeah, they did, wasn't it? Yeah,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we had to we negotiated on that.
Yep.
I remember that.
Earnest money.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Ernest, yep.
One question I did have is on, in the, which one was I? Disbursement, on 9/12, the vendor was Goody County Finance, description is TIF, number 1-5, what is TIF number 1-5?
Tax increment financing,
Which means, I guess,
So we had some TIP projects, and so then there's that fee for them to monitor it.
and what is TIF? I mean, you said the acronym, but what is that actually?
actually, we put it like this across the street, when that ASCS office and that, when we put a tax increment district, so the taxes will pay that off. So we collect the taxes instead of the county and the school until it's done. Then we have to distribute it, Ag Partners had one when they first started, put the first mill in. And that's, we have a pay as you go, and you might have to correct me on this one.
You're doing good so far.
They pay so much a year and then it goes down every year.
The taxes.
Yeah, well,
Or,
yeah, right, it's, how to explain it? I
So
know it.
it's a way for the government, for the cities typically to help
To help them out,
subsidize
yeah.
new development, and the increment, the tax increment financing is where the increase in a property's value, so a piece of property is in the condition it's in today, and then when it's redeveloped, it's worth twice as much from a tax perspective. The increment is the increase in the property value. That increment gets captured and gets used to reimburse a developer for having made investment in public infrastructure to make that development happen. So it's a way to encourage investment in your community by capturing the increase in value from a new development and giving some of that money back for the money that the developers put in to make the development happen. And the county, it sounds like in this case and in many, many cases, the county is the one that's administering, keeping track of the money coming in taxes and the money that needs to go back to developer, and they're keeping track of that for you.
okay.
And you pay them something for that.
We got that for Fab Tech for the housing, or assisted living.
Okay.
And I think at one time, Wayne would be the only one here, we were considering putting the whole downtown in a tax increment district to help pay for different things in town for redevelopment. I don't think we did it.
I'm not sure.
I know when Ag Partners put that business office in, is when that was brought up, but I know
It's
there's.
common for a TIF district to be bigger than any one particular TIF arrangement. So
Yeah.
you can create a district in which you can do TIF deals.
Well, I think Andy was here when we were doing that, because he was suggesting to put the whole commercial area in a tax increment. So, well, like when Ag Partners, or even if that assisted living, if we did at the time, could all been in there to help pay for that, to help them.
Okay. Well, this.
It's a tool it's a tool for helping development, actually.
What I got a question about is, why did, with the Goodyear Grand Living, we give them a check for $105,000, that was $38,327, then on the same day, we give them another check, $38,329 for another $105,000?
Which,
That's on page 4 of 10. It says on the same date, 9/12/22, and then 9/12/22, there's two different checks, $38,327 and $38,329, they're both wrote for $105,000? Is that right? Right here,
Oh, up here,
yeah. Why did,
reimbursement for sewer.
it says there's two of them,
Are those the pay?
two different checks.
TIF reimbursement payments?
So was it, what was the total supposed to be on that? I thought that was the total.
it was only 105.
Yeah, and it says here that we wrote two checks, one for $38,329 was $105, and $38,327 was for $105,000.
But it almost looks like, it was like just putting it twice, because everything's the same all the way down through it from here to here.
Yeah, I don't, but that's two different check numbers, right?
It is two different check numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Okay, so then if you look right above it,
Yep.
or right below it, so look at Goodyear Grand Living, the
Yep.
27 and 28,
Yep.
those are void. Those got switched to void afterwards, because then you see Goodyear Grand Living on the 329 and the 330 for myself, that's the mileage reimbursement. That's, the checks went in, so I have to actually physically take the checks, split them apart, rotate them,
Okay.
and going in, and I didn't that day, and they're flipped backwards, so they
Okay.
are on void.
Okay, good.
So
Well, just
Beth-
as long as we have it.
Yeah,
paid
Beth will
twice.
catch that on,
the
once you
audit.
balance this
Okay,
next,
okay.
in 2 weeks.
Okay, sure. Well, I just want to make sure we didn't pay them twice.
Yeah, no.
That's a substantial money.
No, because I would've got two checks too.
Okay, oh, yeah, okay, sure.
Good catch.
Yeah, I was just looking through the end of them, but I didn't get a chance to go through the rest of it here. Well, the checking balance number looks right, that's for what we're at, for what we paid, so.
I got a second?
Second.
Motion made and second to pay the bills. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's made and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Yes.
I'd like to address